Hi, I'm Graeme Codrington, and this is my review of 2020. The third question to help us review the year is, how did the economy do? Near the beginning of the COVID crisis, we were talking about a balancing act between lives and livelihoods, between the health of people and the health of our economy. And did we get it right? And how did the economy do? As we head into the first few weeks of 2021, countries around the world are going to be releasing their GDP figures, and every one of them is going to look bad. Most countries are going to be in negative territory with contracting economies. A few countries might be in positive territory, but will be well below their expectations and preference. So it's been a disaster. It's been tough. And as somebody who has experienced more than a 50% drop in my income and in the activity of our business, it is devastating. And it's not as devastating for me as it is for many others. So that's the headline figure. Tough, rough. But the headline figures of GDP contraction are going to be useless. If your country has a -5 or a -7 in their GDP, what does that number actually mean? Because some industries have been decimated. Entertainment, travel, tourism, hospitality, airlines, cruise ships are all going to be down 90%, 80%, absolutely smashed. Some of those people have been protected and helped by their government. Some of those industries had some reserves in place, had some insurance. They've had to fight their insurance companies in many countries to get the insurance paid out, and they can kind of squeak by. But if they look ahead to 2021 and think it's going to be more of the same, I think as devastating as 2020 has been, there might be even harder news in 2021 as they run out of reserves and run out of the ability to just hang in there. So some industries have been absolutely decimated. And my view is that governments should be helping those companies, those industries, where through no fault of their own, they have been hardest hit. Some companies have been hard hit, but have done better than they would have expected. If we had had a chat in March, April, at the start of all the massive chaos of lockdown and the spread of the virus, and we didn't quite know what was going to happen, I think some companies looked ahead and thought this is going to be a disaster. And they've got to the end of the year and they've done better maybe than they thought they would. Some have done better for bad reasons. They just shed costs, and in particular shed people. They saw no reason to be loyal to their staff, and they just absolutely stripped out their staff, refusing to pay their staff, so on. Some didn't have a choice. If you're in the previous set of industries we spoke about in entertainment and hospitality, maybe you didn't have any options. But some companies did have choices, and they made really bad choices. I hope that we remember their names. I hope that if you work for, if you know of companies that have really just been absolutely horrible in their choices and in their actions towards especially the people in their systems, we need to say their names and remember their names and make sure that they understand that that is not appropriate behavior, and we will not reward them later by being their customers and clients. Other companies have struggled but done well. I hope we remember their names too. I know lots of companies who have done so much to keep their staff on board. Senior leaders taking massive salary cuts so that people lower down in the organization didn't have to. Owners of businesses who have remortgaged their homes, who have taken out loans in order to make sure that they could continue to pay their staff. Ordinary individuals who have just continued to pay some of their suppliers. Hairdressers and yoga instructors and gym instructors who have been paid by some people even though they weren't offering services. Those are the kinds of stories that have actually kept me going through the year. Stories of human compassion and kindness, of community and engagement. And again, I hope we learn some of those stories and can reward the companies that did the right thing, even though it was tough. But then there's another category that I really want to highlight. You see, I've heard people it's become the normal way of speaking. Our economy has been devastated. Our economy has been ravaged. We can't afford another lockdown because the economy is in the pits. And I'd like to say that I think there's a significant chunk of businesses in our economy that are not devastated. Most people who are working in these industries who've had jobs are actually better off this year than they have been individually, because they've continued to receive their salary but have had a lot of their costs reduced, and they're ending the year better off. They don't talk much about this, and rightly so, and a lot of those people are using some of their money to give to charity and to fund food banks, and fantastic, well done to them. But the industries that actually are going to end the year maybe better off than they anticipated, and some of them even having the best year ever. Well, I wonder if you can think of them. I can think of quite a long list. Let's start with e-commerce companies, especially those who are in the delivery of goods. Around the world, the Amazons and the Alibabas are the big company names. Where I live in South Africa, Takealot have had their best year ever. A company called Checkers, a supermarket chain, launched a home delivery service in December 2019. They couldn't have had better timing. They don't speak this way, of course, but I can look at them on their behalf and say the best timing ever, because they couldn't have imagined that they would have had as much demand as they've had, and they've been able to do a brilliant job this year of delivery. So anybody doing delivery, Uber in South Africa experimented with becoming a courier service. So you had Uber Delivery, where they'd pick up a parcel and deliver it to somebody else. Restaurants that moved quickly to home deliveries and did a good job of that also maybe had a tougher year than they were expecting in 2019, but maybe had a better year than they were hoping for in when they saw March and April coming. What about the data and telecoms companies? We've all used way more data this year than we normally would have. We've all upgraded from voice to video. We've all, let's add to the list now, Netflix and Disney Plus and so on, where we've all upgraded our subscriptions. We've bought more subscriptions to those online services. We have needed more data. My data provider here at my house did a brilliant thing back in April. We got an email saying, yeah, we see lockdown, we realize you're going to be using more data, so we've upgraded you to the next package up at no cost to yourself. So that would mean doubling your data and doubling your speed, and it will last until June. And then in June, if you don't want it anymore, just tell us and we'll take you back to your previous package. Brilliant. They weren't hiding anything. There was no fine print. It was in big bold letters every month in April, May, June. They said, this is coming to an end at the end of June, and if you want to go back to your previous package, you are welcome. As far as I understand, most people stayed on the package. I even upgraded to the one above it, and they are making more money than they could have imagined. I know the companies that are installing fiber just can't keep up with the demand, and all of the mobile phone companies are doing really well. They've also, remember, a lot of these companies stripped out costs, the costs of those big fancy head offices that they've got, the costs of their call centers, because everybody's working from home now, and so they've increased their revenues and decrease their costs. It's a good year. Insurance companies, banks, other financial services, some of them have given a few rebates to their clients, but most of them have kept their income flowing and have again reduced their costs. Some of them reduced their costs quite dramatically. Medical aid companies, here in South Africa we have private medical aids that we pay a lot of money to, and a lot of those medical aid companies are not paying out as much as they expect to. I want to say this sensitively, but COVID is not an expensive disease. not for the medical aids. Yes, for those people who need to be in hospital and on ventilators, of course, there's a cost involved there. But you're in hospital for a relatively short period of time, most people who are, and needing to go to hospital. It's not a long, protracted, extended disease like cancer that can take many months and many years to deal with massive costs involved. It does what it does in our system reasonably quickly, and you either recover or you don't reasonably quickly. And as I say, I want to say that sensitively for those who have struggled with this. The point I'm making is that it isn't a devastating disease from a medical costs perspective. And of course, there's a lot of people who have put off a number of other medical costs, who maybe haven't gone for their annual checkup, for their dentist checkup this year, who've put off elective surgeries. Now, maybe that will catch up with us in the next 2 or 3 years' time. But this year, medical aid should have much lower costs. Again, getting the costs out of the system from the big buildings they've got, and possibly not losing too much on the revenue side. Those people who are in technology, selling computers, laptops, cameras, lights, those who are in educational technology spaces, selling technology for homeschooling, selling technology for virtual conferencing, they can't keep up with demand. And then the media has done reasonably well. We've all been watching the news, maybe more than ever before. We've been glued to it. They've been able to sell advertising. And yeah, again, these are generalized statements, and some have struggled and some have succeeded. Wouldn't want to be in newspapers and magazines this year, but I'm thinking TV and radio. And then, interestingly enough, some of my mining clients have had a really good year because of the price of the commodities. The price of the minerals that they extract from the earth has increased in across many sectors, and they are doing reasonably well. Okay, that's enough of a list. I think you've got the point. Yes, it's been tough, it's been rough. Yes, in some industries and sectors it's been devastating, but not for everybody and not for the economy as a whole. What are the lessons we can take out of this review? Well, if you are in an industry that's been hit, it is. There's no good thing, easy thing to say. I can't just say buck up, it'll be okay, because it probably won't. And if it's been tough in 2020, it'll probably continue to be tough in 2021. So you've got to do what some of the companies who were more lucky about the industries that they are in have done. You've got to be adaptive, you've got to be responsive, you've got to be innovative and creative. Hotels, for example, who have sold out their Christmas specials now, because throughout this holiday season they're offering you a private room for you and your family to go and have a holiday meal, even a Christmas Day meal, where you get a single butler to serve you through the afternoon. You get food and drink in a hotel room that has had the bed removed and has had a table and chairs put into it. So you're doing everything right. You're physically distancing, you're isolating, and you know that you're in a safe space, but you are still getting hotel level service. Hotels who have turned themselves into day rental offices. Those are examples of being adaptive, of being responsive. And we're going to have to continue to do that throughout 2021. Even if you've had a really good year in 2020, don't forget that quite a lot of that was just the luck of the draw. And as we head into 2021, you can't rely on that luck. You are going to have to continue to be responsive to change, to be adaptive. And more importantly, you're going to have to look after your people and help them with their resilience, their mindfulness, their psychological and physical and mental wellness. There's a lot of work to do. None of us can look back on 2020 and rest on our laurels and say it's all going to be okay in 2021. We're only in the middle of this chaos. We may be at the beginning of the end, maybe we're only at the end of the beginning, but we're not at the end of it. And there's no reset button on New Year's Day that will make next year a good year by default. We have to plan, prepare, and be ready for whatever the next year brings us. And while we can't be certain of anything, we can be certain that it will be uncertain, volatile, and that we are going to need to be adaptive in every way to make it through. So all the best as you take a break. Hopefully you are getting a break, and set yourself up for whatever success is possible in 2021.